Let's talk about writing for characters in my little rant from yesterday. Because, every so often I do those rants, and a lot of times those are products of me working on something that I'm working on, writing. And that comes out of that. So there are some comments of like, oh, loser, used to be good at Left 4 Dead, and now look at you. Like, dude, there's this weird thing, and this is why I wanted to talk about that yesterday, the underlying talk about that people are three-dimensional, is this whole idea that somehow I became liberal after I left Valve. When we were doing Old Man Murray, we were also volunteering and helping out Gay People Chronicle publication that was in Cleveland, as well as in working with their side that made money with the publishing side. This is who I've been all my life. And I love that somehow, there's this, oh, when you were at Valve, you weren't that person, and now you are. No, people are always that. And that was my pushback. And I've said this to the person who made the videos that I've been talking about, is people come and go from jobs for a variety of reasons. They're not for your fantasy reasons. They're not two-dimensional people that don't have reality behind them and who they really are. And so that is the thrust of what I was talking about. But now the form that it came in was I was working on a character that is very much that kind of energy, that kind of ball, right? When I write, I act out. Pretty much I'm improvising by myself. And this is why I have an office to myself that used to be in the basement because it's quiet and I could be around, but I've often written in hotel rooms. And when I write, the process that I use is I don't put any limits on myself. So I just start kind of ranting, and I just kind of take it to wherever it goes, be it Ellis, be it Rochelle, be it Coach, be it, whoever, Francis. Here, I have a good Francis example, but or even Lance or Liu in the Anacrusis, right? It's just, I just do this. And this is where you get all of a sudden me talking about David Schwimmer in the middle of it, right? Because I just kept going and yes, and yes, and yes, and never saying, no, don't go in there, don't go in there, don't go in there. It's a really helpful device for writers because it helps you explore really broadly and really quickly a whole breadth of a character. And you could really find it out. And so, I originally started doing this back in the Old Man Murray days because I wrote a lot of the stuff that was like the really wound up, crazy, just wanted to get into fights character. And so, always there's something in you, that would just have to be like, I'd have to get myself wound up. And I remember at one point, Eric just being like, man, you got to just, come on, you got to get more wound up on this one. I'm like, oh my God, I have a heart attack. And so some of it's that, right? And so when some people attack me for that, it's just funny to me. Like, is your life that narrow that you don't have a variety of ways of expressing yourself, that you're always just some bland milquetoast, like whatever. So I enjoy when I can see that, and when other people do that as well, of when they're channeling that and they're bringing that forward, right? So I went to school for theater, even though I don't act, but often draw on some of those things, and the improv thing is just really good, right? So I was saying in Left 4 Dead, and Francis that comes through when I was playing through with him, and I was just getting in his just like kind of thing, and I saw that sign for the lawyers, and I hated that piece of art, and I had asked that piece of art to be removed, and it hadn't been removed yet. And so as the character, he's just like, I hate lawyers. And it just made me laugh, and I just started going around saying I hate all this stuff, right, in character, but like out loud, yelling this, right? When I do these, often like 90% of what gets generated is unusable, right? It's just funny in these videos because it captures all of them, right? Like if I was going to condense that down into something that was written, I would have removed a lot of that, right? But it's the David Schwimmer part gets me to the next part, right? And it takes me through these steps, and it walks me through this stuff that isn't the actual point of it, but it brings me to the end point, which lets me then be able to express that character, that person's opinion from that place. And so I don't write down like 90% of what comes out of those rants, but in the middle of it, I'll just write down some phrase or some little bit. And I try not to stop myself, because if you stop yourself and start writing it down, you get out of that. And I know you can record it, but it never felt right. And these are funny to do, because you see how like, it drives my wife nuts. She's like, you got to always get an office when you're writing, because I can't take this energy that you come out of these rooms with. But to get all wound up about this, And then, like I said, you take some of that and like the I hate stuff, right? And then, I remember the next day I showed Eric all the I hate stuff and he just started laughing. He goes, "Oh, that's great." And then we just went through and did a whole bunch more I hate stuff. And that's how the other writers, because they're also understanding that character. And so then when you can tap into that character's essence, that core, and you get something that you can take away from it, right, is all of a sudden like, you're like, oh yeah, right? That helps define that character and everybody else can see it. And especially if you've talked about and you've like expressed what those attributes of that character has, everybody else can then just plug in and understand and take that. And so some of that when I rant on here, especially, is it's tapping into that. And then again, like I said, it's funny because I see these people, I hid the comment, we'll never see that person again. But it's just like, oh yeah, you used to be good at Left 4 Dead. I guess that was your high point. Now you're just a pathetic old man ranting on the internet. I'm like, well, yeah, I am a pathetic old man ranting on the internet. But I've always been a pathetic old man ranting on the internet since the 90s. This is probably before you were born. But that's fine. That's fine. And I purposely don't write down these. People are like, oh, you should write down your videos or whatever. I'm like, well, first of all, it's too much work. I'm not going to do that. I have games to make. But also because sometimes with these, you get to a place that you didn't start with and you make connections you didn't realize. And then sometimes you want to delete the whole thing and start over again because you get it to the end and you're like, oh, wait, that was the point of that. That's why that was bothering me. That's where I was going with that. And so I would suggest for anybody who is trying to like write or be creative about that, let yourself go sometimes and let yourself just improv on your own. And don't worry about like, is that something that character would say? Is that something that fits this? Is this something like the thing that I'm writing for is about in the future and has nothing to do with like they would never know who Snoop Dogg is. But equally, like you can use that kind of stuff to then think about, well, how would they react to these things in the future when it's down that path? Like they've come from there and it's like further down that path. How would it get there? And that's where I think you get interesting stuff from. And so I still like to do those. I still like to ramble on here where I don't put down and control my thoughts and write it down and just regurgitate it to you. That's boring. And if you don't like it, right, you don't have to watch. So, yeah, thanks. Oh, actually, I'll answer the other. There's one good question that came out of that I will answer separately.